Thank you for being here. In compliance with Chapter 551, Open Meetings of the Texas Government Code is amended. I call to order a meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Austin Independent School District for Monday, January 30th, 2012 at 7:06 p.m. The board may meet in closed session to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, deliberation of the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, deliberation of negotiated contract for prospective gift to the district, deliberation about commercial or financial information that the board has received from a business prospect, or deliberation of an offer of a financial or other incentive to a business prospect, and or consult with legal counsel regarding pending or contemplated litigation or on a seven offer, or on a matter which the school district's legal counsel determines should be confidential in accordance with Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, Sections 551.074, 551.072, 551.073, 551.087, and 551.071, respectively. Welcome, everybody. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move approval.
Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Torres. All in favor of that motion, please raise your right hand. Passed unanimously. Thank you, board. Okay, now let us turn to the pledge. We are fortunate to be joined by some wonderful students from Barton Hills that have a height alignment that is just incredible. That is a beautiful thing to see. Okay, so y'all are in charge. Welcome. We're glad to have you. Thanks for being here tonight. And whoever's in charge, you can step up and tell us what you'd like us to do. And if you want to use the microphone, you can, or you can just talk really loud from there, whatever your preference is. Shuffle over to the mic. That's great.
Please stand for the pledges. Please turn to face the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please face the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Great job. Thank you. Who do we have with us tonight?
My pleasure. Good evening, Dr. Karstarf, President Williams, and the AISD School Board of Trustees. I'm Katie Ochterman, the principal at Barton Hills Elementary. And this evening, we have students representing Barton Hills from kindergarten through 6th grade. And our 6th graders are also the leaders of our No Place for Hate Coalition. So it's my pleasure to introduce the following students. And they're going to give a wave. Evie Whitfield, Emery Roach, Trevi Bryant, Emily Ochterman, Stella Kennard, Noah Shunk, Noah Gershoff, Sora Sunby, and Sloan Dudley. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, just there was a name that seemed familiar. Did you recognize one?
Yeah, there is one, sort of by default. Had to be here tonight.
Emily, thanks for coming with us, hanging in there. Okay, well, thank you all for being here. We have some little stuff for them. Why don't you guys come forward, and we'd like to give you a little recognition. So give them a big round of applause as they move forward. If you would like to, it's up. Okay, I know there were several parents, maybe other staff members from Barton Hills here. If you could sort of wave your hands, thank you for bringing these great students to see us tonight. We're going to give you a round of applause for all of your support of your children and the school. And y'all are welcome. Well, actually, y'all need to go, as we talked about. Go get these kids at home. But if you want to stay, you're welcome to. Thank you for being here. And if you get a chance, you want to root the horns on when you get home, that's okay too. We'll let them shuffle out. Okay, now let's turn to Dr. Starfin. You ready?
Yes,
Go.
Mr. President. Trustees of the board, this agenda item is regarding School Board Recognition Month. All across Texas, school boards are being appreciated by their communities here in the month of January. This year's theme is Helping Our Kids Shine. And for those of you who know or perhaps don't know some of our school board members, we do have 9 that are elected by the public, and they provide an invaluable service to the community by setting high goals for student achievement and by working hard to make sure that our district achieves them. Our trustees volunteer hundreds of hours without pay on behalf of our students. And our elected team of 9 diligently probes the most pressing issues, looking forward, expecting success, and leading us in their determination to forge an exemplary urban school system, not just here in Texas, but something that people would be proud of all across our nation. I know, I work with them every day, that the job simply isn't easy. And as leaders, we also recognize that you're accountable to the people who vote you in. But because of the challenges that any district faces, including Austin Independent School District, we have seen time and time again that you are up to the task of making these challenges real, addressing them and working through them as necessary, and ensuring that the resources are put behind those promises. So we appreciate your willingness to, again, time and time again, be up to the task. You represent many different geographic areas of our community, and while all those communities are actually quite different, I think we can all agree that we know that you're working tirelessly to do what we believe is best for our students. I'm honored to work with you every day as a partner in offering the kind of quality education and opportunities for our students. And in honor of our board members, there are many things that have been going on throughout the month. You can see many of the some of the posters. We have some all up in the boardroom and in some of your offices upstairs. You've received, I know, cookies from the PTA, but I noticed y'all didn't share the TIF treats with anyone, but I did see them, the boxes. I could smell them all the way down the hall. So thank you to our Austin PTA. Pease Elementary School, I saw the Office of Academics. I mean, just lots of people leaving you notes and little goodies of appreciation. Even our school librarians are working to have donated the biography of Apple founder Steve Jobs to be put in every high school in AISD in honor of you as board members. So we're very happy to see that made possible. Your work has made things better for our kids. And even tonight, if I recall, you were served a delicious pre-dinner. And hopefully it'll get you through the night by our Travis and Austin High Culinary Academies, where, if I remember correctly, they made delicious salad and a baked chicken and some grilled peppers and some roasty potatoes for y'all. So they wanted to make sure you had at least one great hearty meal grateful for all of your efforts throughout the school year. So just on behalf of the district and everyone who's participated in appreciating you this month, just know that we are all behind you and we thank you for your service every day. So on behalf of Austin Independent School District and Austin community, happy Board Appreciation Month.
Thank you, Dr. Starfin. And thank you all very much. And thanks to all of the folks who have been very generous, both with notes and gifts, and the cookies and treats and we did have a great meal this evening from our Travis High Culinary Arts folks. So thanks to everybody for their support. We very much appreciate it. Plus Austin High, Travis and Austin High. They're a culinary arts team. So thanks to both of them, but thanks to everybody for all of their support. We very much appreciate it. Okay, we will get on with the rest of the meeting. We are scheduled for a public hearing on the financial state accountability ratings and the annual AEIS, which is also known as the Academic Excellence Indicator System, AEIS. But Ms. Hopkins, I'm going to confirm that we did not have anybody sign up this evening for this particular hearing, so we can actually move on to the next item. And thank you very much. And the next item is actually an update. If you'll bear with me, I'm going to give you a couple items for you all to be aware of. And throughout the district, schools will observe in this upcoming month of February African American Heritage Month. In elementary schools, choirs will sing African American spirituals, and student artists will create masks, quilts, and other items based on African American history. Secondary schools will also have art displays, musical concerts, theatrical presentations, and dance performances to recognize the important contributions of African Americans in the history of our city, state, and country. The entire Austin community, and I hope all of y'all will consider, you're invited to attend the Austin ISD's 29th Annual African American Heritage Celebration, at which we will honor more than 200 students in grades 6 through 12, as well as the 4th grade 2012 essay contest winners. And community leaders will also be recognized for their contributions and for serving as role models for our youth. This event will begin at 3 p.m. on Sunday, February 19th. Put that on your calendar, 3 p.m. Sunday, February 19th, at the Austin Convention Center, ballrooms A through C at 500 East Cesar Chavez Street. And even beyond that, February has also been designated as the National Career and Technology Education Month. And this year's theme is CTE, Career and Technology Careers Through Education, and it underscores the opportunities that career and technical education provides for students to acquire 21st century academic and technical skills. Career and technical education courses are offered at every AISD middle and high school campus. There are currently more than 11,000 students enrolled in high school CTE courses and more than 6,000 students enrolled in middle school CTE courses. And last year, 1,207 high school students obtained an industry certification, and 3,973 high school students earned college credit. And we are proud of our CTE students and staff who do such a tremendous job of giving our students hands-on experiences in the many courses taught in high schools throughout our district. So thanks to the entire CTE team for all of the wonderful work they do, and for our students for being so successful in those endeavors. Okay, board. We are now going to turn to citizens communication, and this is the time we dedicate at each regularly scheduled board meeting for public comments. And under open meetings law and the rules of this board, there will not be a dialogue between the persons at the microphone and the dais, but we'll be taking notes. In order to provide as many opportunities for input within a limited time period, each person will be allotted 2 minutes. As you come to the microphones, there's a device that will light up as you move through your 2 minutes of allotted time. When the buzzer sounds, please take the opportunity to sum up your comments so we can move on to the next person, and each person who's signed up will have the opportunity to address the board. And we ask that whether you come to give a complaint or praise, that you reference staff member by position or by abbreviated last name, for example, Mr. D or Ms. A, unless you're addressing the superintendent of schools or the board, and then feel free to address us directly. And the district is a local governmental body charged with serving the educational needs of all students, and board meetings must be focused on meeting this charge. All regular AISD board meetings are televised and rebroadcast on AISD Cable Channel 22 and over the AIS website. And we ask that audience members, whether speaking or not, please show respect for all others at all times during the meeting. The Communications Services Department provides a Spanish language translator for audience members who need need assistance understanding comments made to trustees or when addressing trustees during citizens communication. If you need the service during other portions of the meeting, please speak with the interpreter. And Debbie Love, our communication specialist, will repeat this message in Spanish. And welcome. Thank you for being here.
Buenas noches, mesa directiva, presidente Williams y superintendente Karstafen. Me llamo Debbie Moretsky Love y soy intérprete del distrito. Estoy aquí para ofrecer mis servicios de interpretación al español para las personas que los necesiten. Gracias.
Thank you. Okay, and my apologies if I mispronounce your name. Please come up and fix me up when you speak, and we'll get started. Dr. Cheryl Prater, Cynthia Wilcox, and Lee Ziegler.
Good evening, Dr. Karstafen, President Williams, and the AISD Board of Trustees. Thank you for the work you do on behalf of Austin's children. My name is Cheryl Prater. I'm an early childhood educator with the ACE tutoring program. ACE stands for a Community for Education, and we are presently tutoring in 11 of Austin's public schools. I happen to work with the tutors that are serving at Lucy Reed Pre-K Demonstration School. My purpose in speaking to you this evening is specifically to connect the name of Anita Uphouse to the new AISD Early Childhood Center. And while her contributions at the local, state, and national levels are varied and abundant, as indicated by her letters of support, I have chosen two connections to focus on. Because the important thing about Anita Uphouse is that she herself is an early childhood educator and has given her professional life to the benefit of young children. From 1983 until 2001, Anita served as lead administrator in charge of pre-K and kindergarten programming for AISD. She hired me in the late 80s to be a pre-K teacher at Allison Elementary. As a trainer of teachers, Anita developed in me and countless others a love for teaching young children and a passion for teaching them in a quality way. During this time period, Anita also served TEA as one of the authors of the pre-K guidelines, providing Texas teachers and young children with research-based educational standards. Many of those who now provide excellent training for AISD pre-K and kindergarten teachers were first mentored by Anita Uphouse. Therefore, the teachers who become the faculty of the new Early Childhood Center will bring with them a mentorship begun by Anita Uphouse, a connection to excellent teaching. My second connection is that during the 2005-2006 school year, Anita led the planning process for the conversion of Reed Elementary to the pre-K demonstration school it is today. Her expertise was built on the 20 years that Anita has spent working on AISD facility committees, beginning with the 1983 bond program, authoring educational specifications and designing model kindergarten classrooms. It is these very specifications, though now modified, that have been used in the construction of the new early childhood classrooms. Anita and her love for children are indeed within the very walls. Please name the new center after Anita Uphouse because she actually is an early childhood educator. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Wilcox, Lee Ziegler, and Susan McClendon. Welcome.
We hope tonight you'll vote in the best interest of your constituents by withdrawing item 14.7 from the consent agenda and voting no. The bid package says AISD reserves the right to reject any and all bids for any reason, including to reject a bid which is in any way incomplete or irregular. These are a few examples of irregularities. The motion the board approved December 12th was $29,400 less than the actual bid. There have been 3 board meetings since December 12th where this error could have been addressed but was not. The error itself is an irregularity, and the failure of staff to correct the error in a timely fashion gives this bidder an unfair advantage over previous and future bidders. We were told that AISD staff and the current bidder met in December within days of the December 12th vote to accept the bid, and an agreement was signed by the current bidder. Today, 33 days after the open records request for any documents related to the acceptance of the bid, we received a response that there is no contract with the bidder. We still have no reply about the December meeting or the purchase agreement. The prolonged lack of a contract or purchase agreement make this bid both incomplete and irregular. Earlier today, AISD staff informed us that the bidder has not been required to post any earnest money. Last time around, President Mark Williams signed the agreement with the previous bidder on the very day that the board voted to accept the bid. The previous bidder signed that agreement and posted $25,000 in earnest money within 2 days. That was in compliance with Section 7.1 of the bid package. It was 8 days total between your vote and receipt of the earnest money from the previous bidder. The fact that 49 days have passed without the current bidder being required to post earnest money required by the bid package makes this bid both incomplete and irregular. Errors, omissions, and missed deadlines on the part of a bidder would void a bid. More needs to be known about this flawed process before a vote is taken. Please vote no on agenda item 14.7. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee Ziegler, Susan McClendon, and Trudy Weatherford.
This is regarding item 14.7. Once again, residents of Travis Country come to you hopeful that the opportunity will present itself for each of you to support the Native Prairie Association in a proposal for conservation of the AISD property. Their creative offer would have been beneficial to you while retaining mitigation rights for AISD for development elsewhere, as addressed in the bid proposal. Thus far, it seems the affected neighbors and the Travis Country Board have been overlooked, and now, due to a clerical error, we are witnessing an attempt to change the time frame for fulfillment of the original bid package. In fairness to other bidders, this should in no way change the inspection period outlined in the bid package with a respective end date in March. I am totally confused why there has been an exemption for the earnest money regardless of an omission in the submitted documents. In any case, this irregularity provides an opportunity for rebid and an acknowledgement of the importance of this property to our neighborhood. Because this property remains or is in the Edwards Aquifer and drains directly into Sycamore Creek and thus Barton Creek, we do not want to see destruction or incomplete development interrupted by the presence of numerous karsts requiring excavation with the likelihood of a protective cave. Furthermore, it defies logic that development of 11 houses consistent with the neighborhood within the 15% impervious cover permitted will render a profit for a builder. In my opinion, you should not prolong this process, but consider a rebid. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan McClendon, Trudy Weatherford, and Mary Stewart Miller.
Please withdraw item 14.7 from the consent agenda and vote to reject the bid on the land in Travis Country. The bid package states, the evaluation of the bids will also depend upon various other factors which have a pertinent bearing on the public interest of the AISD and its citizens. Residents of Travis Country are citizens and AISD constituents. We live in a neighborhood of 4,000 people in what is now Robert Schneider's district and may soon be Mark Williams' district. Both Tamala Barksdale and Annette Lavoie have championed issues that concern parents and AISD students who live in our neighborhood. We are hopeful you will take into consideration tonight the negative impact this 2-year-long ordeal has had on our neighborhood and reject the bid. The bid package gives AISD the right to reject any and all bids. The news this weekend said AISD expects nearly all schools to exceed their capacity in the near future. The value of development offset offered by the Native Prairies Association bid far exceeds the value offered by this irregular bid, even if you don't consider that this land is in the Barton Springs watershed and Edwards Aquifer recharge zone, which are critical to Austin's water quality. This bid, like the previous failed bid, may look good on paper, but in real life it's bad for AISD, for your constituents and students in our neighborhood, and for AISD's water quality. Also, it's bad for kids in crowded schools in all the trustees' districts, like in Ms. Brister's district, where campuses are at 150% capacity. The legitimate bid from a reputable and established conservation group, the Native Prairies Association, would make it possible for AISD to expand campuses that have reached their impervious cover limits. This irregular bid won't. If you are authorized tonight to change your decision about the bids that were submitted, please withdraw them. Please withdraw item 14.7 from the consent agenda and vote instead to accept the Native Prairies Association bid. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a second. Trudy Weatherford, Mary Stewart Miller, and John Duffy.
Trustees, I am here tonight asking you to withdraw item 14.7, the ratification of a bid amount. from the consent agenda and to vote no on the item. That the trustees are still considering this bid on January 30th, 2012 is in violation of the bid procedure. Section 6.1 clearly states the period following the time and date designated in the notice as the deadline for submitting bids through and including the bid opening, evaluation, and the execution of the agreement shall, in no event, exceed 120 days from the date of bid opening. The bid opening was on September 15th, 2011. More than 120 days have passed. Since the agreement has not been executed, you can declare the contract sitting before you void. Furthermore, as pointed out, bid package section 7.1 and section 2.02 of Exhibit D together state that within 2 days of bid acceptance, the contract must be executed, and within 2 more days, earnest money must be delivered. The contract before you tonight was accepted on December 12, 2011. Here we are 49 days after the bid was accepted, and according to AISD facilities, there is no signed contract and no earnest money. This is clearly in violation of the bid procedures, and this irregular execution, inadvertently or not, gives the current bidder an unfair advantage both financially and strategically over past unsuccessful bidders and all future bidders. Signing the contract in front of you tonight without compliance to the bid timeline or procedures would give the current bidder an unfair advantage in this public bid process and would be a very bad precedent. I urge the trustees to do what is best for everyone, and that is to accept the only bid that can close without needing financing, rezoning, or months and months of environmental surveys. The bid from the Native Prairies gives AISD cash up front and developmental offsets to purchase land so that students have desks and seats in buildings that are not bursting at the seams. Reject item 14.7 and accept the Native Prairies bid. Thank you.
Thank you. Just Mary Stuart Miller, John Duffy, and Heather Kafka.
Hi, I'm Mary Stuart Miller, and I am proud to be the librarian at Ortega Elementary School in Central East Austin. But I'm here tonight representing all of the AISD librarians, and I want to tell you a little bit about some of the good things that are happening in the school libraries this winter. In elementary schools in January, this is the month that 3rd through 5th graders vote for their favorite Bluebonnet book, which is a wonderful reading incentive program from the Texas Library Association. And if they read at least 5 books from a list of 20, they get to vote for their favorite book, and they get a I voted sticker like this one, just like they get when they're a real voter in Travis County. And it's a wonderful opportunity to teach about voting processes, and it's also a fun opportunity to have a party where only blue food is served. My colleague at Blackshear is a TELPAS verifier, and she was really happy to read that one of her students wrote that his very favorite day at Blackshear was the day of the Bluebonnet voting breakfast. Just down the street from Blackshear at Go Valley Elementary, the librarian partnered with KLRU to bring some workshops and parent workshops on the really crucial issue of early childhood literacy. And Stacy Smith, the librarian there, was so excited to see. She described to me that her library was bursting at the seams with over 50 families who were learning how to read to each other and share books with each other. And they went home with puppets they made and other materials that they can share. And lastly, the entire Lanier vertical team, all of the librarians and the parent support specialists, had a pajama literacy breakfast at Lanier Library on Saturday the 14th, and over 150 people came to the Lanier Library in their pajamas, and they didn't watch cartoons. They had a visit from a local author who read her work and talked about her work. They went to different literacy stations and heard stories from different countries, and they all had a good time around books. So thank you for your support of libraries. We have some gifts for you on the dais, and I just want to say I appreciate your acknowledgement that libraries and librarians play a really vital role in a school community. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
John Duffy, Heather Kafka, and Dr. Hillary Prucknow.
Dear Board of Trustees and Dr. Karstafen, this letter is on behalf of an anonymous senior at Eastside Memorial High School. As a senior at Eastside Memorial, we keep hearing that the takeover by Idea Charter School will not affect us. We were even led as a group to respond to the questions, will this affect you? And we were led to chant, no. Will this affect the juniors? We were led to respond, no. Will this affect our sophomores? No. And the freshmen? No. Telling us that this whole deal will not affect us, or that it has not affected us already, insults our intelligence and makes us angry. The instant the district went public with plans to implement a charter in East Austin was the instant it began to affect us. We started losing some of our favorite teachers in October of 2011. Teachers like Ingrid Reistroff, who we loved and trusted, started disappearing from our campus. For many of my peers, and for sure myself, seeing posters or hearing speeches about the importance of passing TAKS does not motivate me to work hard to pass state tests. For us, it is the actual relationship we have with some of the teachers that motivates us. If it weren't for people like Ms. Reistroff and Mr. Grady, we wouldn't care at all about stupid state tests. The teachers who care about us motivate us, and to try our best to pass tests and to jump through all the hoops so we can have more opportunities, we can go on to graduate and go to college. I can personally say that if it weren't for these teachers and Mr. Grady, I probably wouldn't have passed or even have come close. Please stop pretending this isn't affecting our current students. Just because IDEA won't be on the Eastside campus for a couple of years doesn't mean this whole proposal isn't having an immediate effect on the students at Eastside. We are devastated as we watch our schools die a slow death. We are on a sinking ship and our teachers are bailing. Unfortunately, most students do not have the option or ability to leave for solid ground, so we must go down with the ship. Many of my peers and I are used to making adult decisions in our lives. Why were we so left out of this one? Thank you, a senior at Eastside Memorial High School.
Thank you. Heather Kafka, Dr. Hilary Prochnow, and Caitlin Austin.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Kastarfin. The teacher I represent wishes they could stand up here themselves, but due to the district's intimidation tactics on campuses against teachers who try to advocate for children, they do not wish to put their school in jeopardy or risk reprisals. I wrote this letter to express my concern for the continued lack of transparency and almost seemingly intentional fog of confusion surrounding the implementation of the IDEA charter school this fall. The teachers in AISD have been told everything from it's exactly as the contract originally was written to the fact that IDEA is now only going to be a K-8 school, leaving Eastside Memorial alone, to pre-K will stay at Allen but be under regular AISD jurisdiction, to now IDEA is actually serving pre-K students. This constant changing of implementation after the contract was signed is incredibly frustrating for our community. We are constantly being asked by parents from all over the vertical team, what is going on? It's extremely frustrating as the first people that most families will come to about school-related issues to feel so inadequately prepared to inform and educate anxious families. Then to find out that Allen parents will not be informed about their options until February 10th, when the deadline will be just 2 weeks later. How do we expect our Eastside families to make an informed decision in less than a month from today when they will not even have all the information they need until February 10th? As we hear more testimonies of the failures of IDEA in the Valley to serve all types of students, I think it is time again to rethink and slow down this freight train that is bearing down on our vertical team and giving the community and the district more time to do its due diligence and hold off on a measure that is being rushed in a piecemeal fashion and creating an enormous PR gaffe that will take years for this district to recover the trust of the Eastside community again. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hilary Prochnow,
Yes, thank you.
Caitlin Austin, and then Megan Buchanan.
All right. I'll be reading a letter this evening. Good evening, members of the board. I represent one of the many silenced teachers whose voice still deserves to be heard. I'm here tonight to tell you a story. This is a story about a school. This school proudly boasted an international baccalaureate curriculum all the way down to the elementary level. It offered technology classes, Spanish classes, music, and art for all students. It had some of the most dedicated teachers that any school would trip over themselves to hire. It had parents who were incredibly excited about their children's education and willing to do what it takes to make them succeed. It had administrators who were dedicated to making the school great and pushing those teachers and students to reach their full potential. This was an exemplary school. Then the plan came to switch to a direct instruction curriculum to make the school's success more franchisable. Many of those dedicated teachers and the administration left in protest. The ones that stayed are doing their best in a bad situation. Many parents, upon seeing the implementation and its effect on their children, began to withdraw. The school has lost much of what once made it great, including the founding teachers and families that were dedicated to making it so. If you haven't figured it out by now, this is an idea school in the Valley, and this is what AISD has asked to come in and work with our kids. Mr. Torkelson has pulled the wool over the district's eyes. None of the accomplishments of idea schools have been achieved by the current curriculum about to be implemented at Allen, and most research does not support direct instruction as best practice. Hold Mr. Torkelson and his people accountable and ask these questions before it is too late. Do not let him put up his continued charade and bravado, but rather force him to answer honestly about his schools and their current status. If IDEA is going to come to Austin, at least demand of him the curriculum that made IDEA successful. All students deserve a comprehensive curriculum. You know the data on charter schools. You know that charter schools do not perform better than public schools, and many of them perform worse. Please do not sell out the future of these students. Our students are not for sale.
Thank you. Caitlin Austin, Megan Buchanan, and Bishop Sarek.
Board of Trustees and Dr. Karstarfin, this letter is on behalf of another anonymous teacher who has felt silenced by the district. I attended the first community meeting at EMHS when the plan for IDEA was announced. Although my expectation was one of dialogue, I left feeling the communication was one way. Dr. Karstarfin showed us alarming numbers with enrollment well below capacity and a large number of neighborhood students choosing to go to alternative campuses and also charter schools. In spite of vocal opposition to the plan to bring in an in-district charter, Dr. Karstarfin maintained her stance, saying she was speaking for the silent majority of parents already sending their students to other campuses. My impression was that IDEA would use its resources and reputation to go out into the community and recruit back those children attending outside of their home school and absorb some students who wanted to transfer. Therefore, you can imagine my surprise when we were informed, again one way, that all 6th grade students currently slated to go to Martin Middle School would be moved to IDEA, unless their parents opted out by the end of February. 6th grade teachers were told that they had 3 choices: interview with IDEA, be put in a reserve pool, or resign. Many years ago, a visionary, Rafi Viciano, was the principal of Martin. Anticipating this day would come, and with the support of the district, he began successfully circumnavigating the arduous process of getting the school certified as an international baccalaureate program, with the idea that Johnston High School would work on the same accreditation to strengthen the vertical team. Johnston, however, was repurposed and juggled, so our IB status was nearly a road to nowhere. Of course, some students were able to use the accreditation to go to Lhasa and Anderson, but what was so
Please wrap up, Ms.
exemplary...
Austin.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just a second. Megan Buchanan, Bishop Sarah, and Terry Adams.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Karstarfin. I would like to start off by thanking you all for the quick action on some of the unfinished renovation projects at Eastside Memorial. Since last Monday's budget meeting, I have seen 2 board members on our campus, Mr. Schneider and Mr. Guzman. And I know the administration has been taking a close look at the progress of some of our work orders and repairs. I also appreciate Mr. Torres's initiative on this. Thank you very much for your interest and your presence this week. Also, since the meeting last week, our PAC chairs have been repaired and reinforced. I'll send you a color picture that's prettier in email. And our lighting system we've submitted a work order for the lights and updates to our cafeteria and other items that I had mentioned. I can speak on behalf of our entire Fine Arts Department and the campus as a whole when I thank you and the board, when I thank the board and Dr. Karstoffen and her team for helping make sure this work is being done. I would also like to thank the school board and administration for your part in making sure our community has the information they need in order to make an informed decision about where their children will attend school next year. I've seen recent flyers with Q&A addressing many of the questions and concerns I have heard from the community. I also know the administration has been coming to our campuses, meeting with teachers, students, and parents about IDEA and the options families have. There are still a few unanswered questions, but I have faith that you're probably already working to provide these answers. Some of my questions are about IDEA and the openness to fine arts, sports, and other electives, which you've heard me express. We've been informed that they're open to offering these programs in some form, and I think that is progress. I'm excited to hear the details, and I've already heard from Dr. Karstoffen that these conversations are happening, and we are involved in them. I've also heard a lot of recent questions in regard to pre-K at Allen and knowing how that will look. Will pre-K be IDEA, or will it be co-located? As I said before, I'm sure you're already working on these items, and information will be coming soon. I think members of our school and community have felt left out of these decisions and discussions, and I see an effort on behalf of the district to reach out and re-engage our vertical team and community members. I think there's still much work to be done, but I think we're starting to move in the right direction. The more we collaborate and work together, the closer we'll be to ensuring that all students receive the best education opportunities. On that note, I'd like to share some recent developments and positive news from Eastside. I'll wrap it up.
Quickly.
Okay. We have our student leadership committee is coming back, and we have a couple parent events happening to encourage parent involvement. There's a Panther Pride Fest in the works for March that will highlight all of our organizations and classes for recruiting students. And just today, one of my choir students, Sai Saito, who's an amazing piano, this is my last one, she's an amazing piano student, has been invited to take part in a master class offered by a world-renowned Jana Resnick this Friday, so that's really cool. This is just to highlight my hope that our focus can shift to positive progressive action to strengthen our vertical team. We're still here, and our students are still amazing. Thank you.
Ms. Buchanan. Bishop Zeri, and I apologize if I mispronounced your last name, Terry Adams and James Raines.
Hi, I'm here representing a couple of families that couldn't be here tonight. I fortunately could. And I have a letter from an Eastside teacher that I'd like to read. She's uncomfortable about expressing her concerns based on what she calls the recent district's crackdown. And in this blatant attempt to silence discontent within the district, AISD has asked its teachers and administrators to not share their thoughts on IDEA. So they're doing it by proxy through me. The teacher quotes your actual contract with IDEA, where you say that AISD agrees to explore the opportunity of IDEA based on evidence of community interest, demand, and district need. And clearly this teacher, in really angry language, doesn't believe that you've done those three things. Specifically, we can't say a single bad word about IDEA, even though they have been set to take over most of our vertical team. I've worked in East Austin a long time, but I will never work for IDEA, with its scripted lesson plans and its disregard for community input and teachers. I'm supposed to stay silent knowing all of this, and there's no interest or demand for it now, and there never has been. And what constitutes need? Eastside Memorial has experienced incredible gains over the past year, and although both it and Allen are acceptable campuses, yet they are in need of takeover, ? If you're going to bring this charter without our consent or input, then you'd better be ready to put up a fight, because the teachers and parents and students of this community are not going to go down quietly. The more you push your heavy-handed agendas and disrespect for this community, the more we will push back. This is round one. Are you ready to go 12? And it's a serious letter, and not certainly one that I would write. This issue is about charter schools. Charter schools are not a new idea. Charter schools are not a new idea. We know what they do to communities. They increase economic disparity, and yes, they're pro-business, but they also increase economic disparity, and that's not what Austin wants.
Thank you. Terry Adams, James Raines, and Luke Meskowitz.
My letter comes from a former IDEA teacher and from the IDEA Quest Academy. My purpose in writing to you is to share with you and your colleagues my experiences and observations as a teacher for IDEA Public Schools. I taught at IDEA Quest Academy for 3 years. Each year brought a disappointingly stark contrast to the year previous as far as curriculum, method of teaching, and sad to say, philosophy of education. The idea that you read about, rigor in student learning, student-centered learning, and quality education no longer exists. Mr. Torkelson has changed from the philosophy of quality student-centered teaching to script-driven, teacher-directed, teacher-centered, and National Institute for Direct Instruction dictated teaching. This was introduced to us as a better idea. The IDEA Academy that is coming to your district is not the idea that once was. I made the decision to give direct instruction a chance. After all, Mr. Torkelson won us over with his rhetoric and encouraging speeches, and I couldn't bear the thought of leaving the best principal and staff I've ever had the pleasure of working with. So I attended the week-long DI training given before the school year started and knew that I was in for a rough road ahead. We learned how to use our scripts. We practiced the script for hours and were watched closely by our trainer to make sure we were sticking to the script. It was a teacher's nightmare. As opposed to this new form of instruction as we were, teachers at the San Juan campus were repeatedly told that if they were not on board with DI, then they were free to leave. In a time when teaching jobs are already hard to find, I decided to try it out. Each of the classes' size fluctuated from 25 to 31 students, with some other grade levels having as many as 40 with only one teacher. My reading group received a scripted reading lesson that I was not to deviate from for any reason. The independent work table consisted of worksheets that corresponded with the scripted reading and language lessons. We cannot work with a student individually or provide differential instruction if needed because DI does not provide for that flexibility. This is not teaching, but injustice to children. Many parents came to me with concerns, and I was told to tell them that this program is research-based and has proven to show profitable results. However, any good educator would argue that process trumps product. With all of this being said, when my principal, a woman who I absolutely adore and admire, had to sit with her staff and give us the ultimatum, you are on board or you're not, I need your answer by tomorrow's speech, I knew that I could not and would not ever be on board with direct instruction. The following day, I gave my resignation. As hard as it was to leave, none of that was worth sacrificing what I believe about educating children with my own educational integrity. It is my hope that these words would not defame the wonderful teachers of IDEA, but instead give them voice where they have none. The goal of this letter is to provide you with the truth about direct instruction in IDEA and to request your district halt its implementation of IDEA. For our students, Amy Schneider.
Thank you. James Raines, Luke Meskowitz, and Natalie Atwater.
Board of Trustees and Dr. Kastarfin, in response to the Board of Trustees and Dr. Kastarfin's unwillingness to answer the simple question everyone wanted to know, what are some of the drawbacks to IDEA and its methods? The Pride of Eastside has decided to do its own diligence and has prepared a series of testimonies from former parents, teachers, students of the IDEA schools down in the valley that have resigned or withdrawn. This is an attempt to present the information that was once conveniently brushed aside in the name of quick and underhanded deal. This testimony comes from Hilda Borrega, a former teacher of IDEA. I'd worked for IDEA for 5 years and recently resigned in September. I taught second, third for 2 years, and science for 2 years. I'm quite saddened to hear that AISD's school board voted IDEA to take over. Just to know that Mr. Torkelson is a businessman, not an educator, he opens a school with the bare necessities. I had no books to teach or any supplies. I was given a laptop and a phone. Every time I would ask for books, I would hear the excuse that there was no money. We had a library for 3 years. IDEA also struggles in meeting the needs of 504 and special education students. These students, for the most part, end up withdrawing. As for why I left, Mr. Torkelson mandated a scripted curriculum for math and reading. Only these 2 subjects were taught all day. Science and social studies were completely taken out of the curriculum as well as other programs. I taught math for 3 weeks and hated the curriculum. The curriculum was in a pilot stage and was being field tested. Parents were never notified that their children were guinea pigs in a research testing, nor were they informed that their 5th graders were being taught 4th grade math instead of 5th grade math. The field test curriculum did not meet any of the problem-solving texts. If students did not understand or failed the weekly exam, the same lesson needed to be repeated to all the students until they passed. So because a few students struggled to grasp the concept, all students were being penalized and held back. This alarmed me. Math manipulatives were not allowed to be used. All students needed to answer at the snap of a finger, and if not, the lessons needed to be repeated. What alarmed me the most is that there's absolutely no accommodations made for special education students. Instead, 5th grade students were being sent to 2nd and 3rd grade classrooms. Imagine how these students felt and how they were being bullied by their classmates.
Please wrap up, sir.
Several students withdrawn because of this.
Thank you. Luke Meskowitz. I apologize if I mispronounced your last name. Natalie Atwater and Don Bose.
Dr. Karstarfin, trustees, good evening. My name is Luke Miskevich, an Eastside resident and father of a Metz Elementary 3rd grader. With your decision to replace Allen and eventually Eastside Memorial with IDEA in-district charter schools, I'm here to speak on behalf of parents who are struggling to understand what this momentous change means for their neighborhood and their children. If IDEA is just another choice, then you must give the parents who wish to opt out of IDEA the information they need to do so and make clear your commitment to invest in Martin Middle School and Eastside Memorial. Until late last week, AISD hadn't made clear how parents could indicate their choice. It is now my understanding that parents will receive a letter by February 10th informing them of the process for opting out of IDEA, with their decision due by February 24th. Next steps should include bilingual meetings held at the schools, clarification on recent decision to keep pre-K at Allen, and an effort not to sell IDEA, but rather to fairly represent all options. Your recent decision to assign every graduating 5th grader in the Martin attendance area to IDEA for 6th grade will exacerbate under-enrollment. So what is the plan for strengthening Martin? If the intention is to downsize Martin and close the doors once IDEA scales up to include 8th grade, let's be honest about that. If not, we deserve a plan of action that will make Martin a compelling option for Eastside families. And how will Eastside Memorial retain teachers, make academic progress, and continue activities through the 2014-2015 school year, after which IDEA will begin co-locating 9th graders? What about through 2017-2018 when, according to your website, the final group of co-located 12th graders will graduate? Has anyone stopped to consider what this slow death will actually mean for those students committed to graduating from Eastside Memorial? I ask that you publicly address these questions and concerns as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Natalie Atwater, Don Bose, and Dan Aviano.
I am proud to be here and represent an Eastside teacher who has been left feeling too uneasy to speak her mind here in person. I hate that I am writing this letter to be read anonymously to you. I wish I had felt safe enough to say these words to you face to face, but I feel that doing so could potentially jeopardize my employment. I need my job to support my family, so I am left writing you this anonymous letter. We were recently in a leadership meeting where we were told that IDEA would possibly be K through 8 and Eastside Memorial would remain a comprehensive high school. I have yet to hear this option mentioned in any type of public forum, and last Monday, board member Lovoy specifically asked if IDEA would be K through 12 at Allen and EMHS, and Dr. Karstarfin said yes. The feeling in our leadership meeting seemed to be that this new option was just a ploy to keep teachers and students in the building, that this is just something to keep us hanging on, at least until the end of the school year. Some teachers seemed excited about the opportunity to beef up our recruitment efforts and improve communication and collaboration along our entire vertical team. The push for recruitment and communication and collaboration along our entire vertical team is very exciting indeed. This is something we have needed in East Austin for a very long time. But what are we recruiting for? How are we supposed to convince students to come to our campus when it is a sinking ship? What will our campus even look like in 3 years? 8th graders and their families want to enroll at a high school with strong academic programs and extracurricular organizations, but how is our coach even supposed to recruit for a football team if we might not even be able to field in a year or two? How do you tell an incoming freshman that our school is worth attending when we can't even promise it will be here by the time they graduate? What I would like from the board is a promise that you will continue to ask important questions about the education in East Austin. The fact that we have already entered into a contract with Idea Schools, but there are still so many unanswered questions, makes me nervous. I want to know what Idea's response is to the proposal that Eastside remain a comprehensive high school. I want to know how Idea feels about the financial loss that will come with losing 9th through 12th grade students. I want to know what Idea thinks about supporting high school football teams and a band without teaching or supporting these skills at the middle school level.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam.
Just a second, Don, I'm sorry. Just a second. Don Bose, Don Aviano, and Jonathan Cronin. I'm sorry. My apologies.
That's fine. Madam Superintendent and board members, my name is Don Boss. I'm the librarian at Metz Elementary. And I'm here to talk to you about the new pre-K center and its naming. I'm another Anita Uphouse groupie, to be honest. Before being a librarian, I was a pre-K teacher, and Anita was the pre-K coordinator at the time. You know that pre-K instruction has its very own body of knowledge, and it's quite different than even teaching kindergarten. And it's just, you know, just like all bodies of knowledge, it's intensive and it's deep and it's important, and it's just very critical to our district. Of course, Anita knew all this and was quite adept at instilling this into us all. She had a gentle, positive touch, and at the same time never let us forget the basics, the principles of how to guide our very young charges. You have a perfect opportunity to lend to the new Southeast Pre-K Center a perfect name. To name it for the lady that best personifies all that this new building should represent to AISD and the community. If you do not know her, I hope you have had some ways to get to know her better along the way, and some of us speaking. But I hope you would take our word for it that this school and her name, Anita Uphouse, would be a perfect match. So please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dan Ariano, Jonathan Cronin, and Frank Martinez. Welcome.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Christopherson, President Williams. I'm here to actually invite you all to attend the once-in-a-lifetime historical event coming up March 29th. The unveiling of our Tejano Monument will be a historical event, and we would like to see the Austin Independent School District participate in some way or another. Now, the events that you have before you, the unveiling of the monument will be on March the 29th at 10 o'clock in the morning. Then, as the president of the Tejano Genealogy Society, our society takes over with an all-day conference at the Capitol starting at 10 in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And we have a slew of authors and historians that are going to be talking about Tejano history. Saturday is the parade starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. Hopefully, we will have a lot of participation in the parade. I've got commitments coming from the South San Antonio Independent School District, Harlingen School District, and even as far away as McCallum. This is going to be a once-in-a-lifetime event, and we need the school district to participate since we are the host city. Now, I've got monuments honoring Juan Seguin, Bernardo Gutierrez de Lara, Bernardo de Galvez. See, this is going to be educational. In one day, you will probably know more about Texas history from our perspective than in any other day in history. You could take a year of college and not learn as much as you will on this one particular day. So what we need is students. We need students to attend and learn about their history. The Tejano Monument it's finally coming to fruition after 200 years. Better late than never, but it's going to happen. So this was positive news. I didn't bring anybody's letter to read. Thank you, and we hope you all participate in our events.
Thank you, sir. Jonathan Cronin, Frank Martinez, and Eric Graham. Jonathan Cronin, not here? Okay. Frank Martinez, Eric Graham, Andrew Sheberly.
Good evening, board members and President Williams, Ms. Garstarfin. First of all, I'd like to thank the board for the volunteer work that they put in so many hours for the citizens in the AISD. I'm sure you all appreciate it one way or another. It's like we all agree to disagree on a lot of things. You as politicians out there, you have a hard job, and it's a volunteer job makes it even harder. I would like to say something that most people have not said here lately is that, first of all, a lot of the people that have talked against the idea, people from the Southwest Key, which is about 6 or 8 months ago, were ready to take over Johnston High School for like $1 for 99 years or something to that effect. So I'm here speaking on behalf of not behalf of ex-Johnstonite, but I'm an ex-Johnstonite, graduated from '64. And the history of the school has not been great, as a lot of us here know. And I appreciate the heck out of these young teachers that are trying to make it. And I hope a lot of them get jobs with this idea. I just think it's time for a change for the future of the Chicanos in East Austin. And since we were being 60% of the population now, I think that we really need to educate our people. And this has not been done in the past. It's sad. It's a sad history that what's been happening in East Austin for so many years. So I really appreciate those people, those board members that voted for this change, because it's time for a change in East Austin. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, sir. Eric Graham, Drew Sheberly, and Larry Amaro.
I'm also speaking on behalf of a teacher who could not be here. Good evening. I'd like to share my concerns with you about our school, Eastside Memorial, and our wonderful students. I cannot begin to express the joy in teaching, in my opinion, the greatest kids in AISD. Without a doubt, I have been shown perseverance, dedication, and most of all, success and willingness to work. Our school has suffered many hits. Through all of what's been thrown at us, we have managed to keep it together with the belief that if we did well, and if we proved TEA, Dr. Garstarfin, and anyone else that our students could pass TAKS, that we would be left alone. As many have said already, our students successfully passed TAKS. Our dropout rate was lowered and our graduation rate is higher than it has ever been. Still, that has not been enough. Our principal, Mr. Grady, was still removed as our leader. Our school is still going to change, and we are only given the opportunity to interview for a possible position as IDEA teachers. I have some questions that I need answered. Why was Mr. Grady not allowed to be our principal again? Dr. Garstarfin says that it is because in the reconstitution plan it states that he can't be the principal. I've gone over that plan, and in no place does it state that. As a matter of fact, if that were the case, then why was he interviewed, and why was the staff told that he would have a chance to apply and possibly be the principal? Number two, why did Dr. Garstarfin state that Eastside Memorial High School will be turned into IDEA in 3 years, yet she then meets with some of us to discuss future plans after IDEA? Number three, why is Dr. Garstarfin saying that Martin's sixth graders will be going to Eastside Memorial in 7 years, yet IDEA will already be in place and there won't be such a thing as Eastside Memorial? Number four, is there any possibility that Eastside Memorial School will be open longer than 3 years from now? These questions lead to a lack of trust. How long can we tell our students to trust that we are doing the best for them when we are constantly changing the path to their success? What else can I say to my students to give them hope that this time the district is actually saying something true? We love our students and we want to be here to support them through graduation, but our students, like many of our staff, is feeling distrust. When will there be true clarity and recognition for what Eastside really stands for? Thank you.
Thank you. Drew Sheberly, Larry Amaro, and Alicia Moore.
Mr. President, Board, Dr. Karstarfin, thank you. This is the month that you're to be recognized, but it's a huge time commitment. We've certainly been there month after month, and you get paid, or you don't get paid, and I do. So I can't even keep up with all the meetings that y'all have. I think there were 3 or 4 last week, and I'm sure several of you were at all of them, and I wasn't. It's a huge time commitment that you're not paid for, but know that this community appreciates what you're doing. So I wanted to talk briefly about something looking forward. Y'all have made some tough decisions, or at least a solid majority of the board has made some tough decisions to bring this budget finally into balance. It took a couple years. You had some structural issues to work through, but you did. And those were tough, and it affected a lot of people's lives. But again, a solid majority made the organizational changes that are going to help you accelerate improvements in your strategic plan. More kids are going to graduate. More kids are going to be ready for college as a result of those very tough decisions. A strong majority, again, acted appropriately to set aside funds on the off chance that the legislature wouldn't solve all of our problems in the last session, and on the off chance they won't solve all of our problems in the next session. So you've got a fund balance. And we, you may remember, this chamber and several of our volunteers went with this board to the community and asked them to raise their tax rate in 2006 and in 2008 directly for teacher compensation, employee compensation. We supported increases in compensation for health insurance. So you're looking today at a fund balance that's better than it's been, and you're looking at appropriate compensation, which in HR terms is salary, health benefits, pensions, vacation, and Social Security. So my hope is, as you're looking at this budget for this coming fiscal year, you look at one-time payments, you look at competitiveness in those areas that are the most important for driving high school graduation, kids learning English, math, and in science. We could talk for multiple days, but thank you for what you do.
Please wrap up. Thank you, sir. Larry Morrow, Alicia Moore, and Amanda Austin.
Good evening, President Williams, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Karstarfin. First of all, I also want to thank the board during this month for all the work that you've done. In this Board Recognition Month, you should be recognized for all the many countless hours that you've spent. All from the work that Dr. Karstarfin and her staff, all the paperwork that they give to you, and I mean that in a good way, by the way. I know that it takes a lot. So first of all, I want to mention that last month when you had the board meeting, last board meeting in December, you had a lot of people here, and the newspapers reported that there was no support for IDEA, but that should have been different, because what happened was there was a blockade, in case those people out there don't know, that there was a blockade in the morning to keep us, the community that supported IDEA coming in, kept us from coming to the school board meeting. And I wanted to make that perfectly clear to the community out there that happened, and that there was community support. And these people were from back in June when Trustee Guzman had met with community people to present the IDEA program, and we thought it was a great idea because we need the help. And I want to mention something that people are trying to make the IDEA program look bad, but if you consider that the Higher Education Coordinating Board has given an award to IDEA for closing the achievement gap. What does that mean? South Texas has the poorest students in the nation, and to bring them from the lowest level of education to the highest level of education, to get these kids going to college, that is quite an achievement. And I'll wrap this up. And the state commissioner agrees with them, and he also thinks highly of them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Alicia Moore, Amanda Austin, and Marcy McNeil.
Mr. President, members of the board, and Superintendent Karstarfin, good evening.
My name is Dr. Alicia Moore, and once again I come before you to humbly ask you to consider my request. I'm here again this evening to speak to you about a person whom I believe to be an outstanding candidate for consideration when naming the Early Childhood Center, Mrs. Anita Uphouse. Mrs. Uphouse is a truly remarkable candidate who is a respected leader in public education and early childhood advocacy, and who has for more than 3 decades shared her passion and influence by providing support to early childhood teachers and students. For her work, she has been recognized, awarded, and honored as an outstanding administrator. And in retirement, she continues to share her dedication and commitment as a champion for young children. However, accolades and honors mean nothing without the shared stories of those whose lives have been touched by their recipients, stories that illustrate their greatness. My story began in 1988 as a new teacher when I had the opportunity to meet Mrs. Uphouse, who at the time served as the Director of Early Childhood Education for AISD. I still remember being astounded that an experienced professional was as excited about early childhood education as I was as a new graduate. From day one, she made it her mission to mentor me, and she not only provided me with wisdom, she also exemplified the characteristics of a master educator and an outstanding leader. Mrs. Uphouse never believed in traveling a route of mediocrity when it came to the education and development of our youth. And she dedicated herself to creating innovative paths to success for all. She personifies true commitment and passion for others, especially children, and countless numbers of young children have received a quality education because of her work. She has continued to pave a trail of excellence, and I believe that trail leads us to this opportunity today. I strongly urge you to consider naming the Early Childhood Center in honor of Mrs. Anita Uphouse, a woman who has dedicated her life to the exceptional public service nationally, in Texas, and especially in AISD. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda Austin, Marcy McNeil, and Jessica Dulesky.
Before I begin reading my letter from a former IDEA parent, I do want to make a point of information that we did not blockade the door to get in here. We actually spent 12 hours out in the rain holding places for Eastside community parents and students to be able to get on citizens communication. So I just wanted to put that out there. So I'm going to read a letter from a former IDEA parent. It says, "My child attended IDEA Quest up until this fall, where after witnessing firsthand and hearing my child's plea to leave, I withdrew him. It's important to know that IDEA did not start out as a direct instruction school. It was a comprehensive curriculum replete with art, music, science, social studies, Spanish, and technologies. But this past April, however, some higher-ups at IDEA sat the parents down and began to explain how the school was going to undergo a transformation to the direct instruction model. They misrepresented what this would look like and how it would affect our children, claiming that it would cater to each individual student's needs. What I witnessed and what my child experienced this fall was nothing short of atrocious. Our principal, whom the community loved and supported, left under protest of the new curriculum, and a large portion of the great teachers followed. Students were not catered to individually, but rather stigmatized by being placed in classes with younger students if they failed to meet the testing requirements. It was devastating to watch my son's self-esteem deplete as he was a 5th grader sent back to 3rd grade. I witnessed students being escorted by the arm in protest to younger classes because they did not want to feel the shame of having to sit in a lower level class. In IDEA's direct instruction model, lessons must be repeated until every child says the correct answer at the snap of a finger. Because of this, when a student responded to something incorrectly, the rest of the class would express their disapproval of having to go over the lesson all again. This led students to lip-syncing answers so that they did not have to feel embarrassed in front of their classmates. And then this is kind of just a personal comment. I did some research on direct instruction. I have a master's in early childhood special education, and I'm familiar with this. My personal comment is that according to the Institute of Education Sciences, the What Works Clearinghouse, quote, "The WWC considers the extent of the evidence for direct instruction to be small for oral language, small for print knowledge, small for cognition, small for math. No studies that met the WWC evidence standards, with or without reservations, addressed phonological processing, early reading, writing, and direct instruction was found no discernible effects on the oral language, print knowledge, cognition, and math skills," end quote.
Thank you. Marcy McNeil, Jessica Dulesky, and Claire Reuter.
Hi, my name is Marcy McNeil. I'm a fourth grade teacher at Odom Elementary School, and I serve as the local president of Austin ATPE. Our local unit is the local affiliate of the statewide organization, Association of Texas Professional Educators, with over 116,000 members statewide. And I know the last day of January is tomorrow, but we don't want to let the month pass without bringing our good wishes to the Austin Austin ISD Board of Trustees in honor of School Board Appreciation Month. Thank you for your unrelenting service and advocacy for the families, for our students, for our staff, and for the taxpayers in our school district. From ATPE, I brought you a small goodie bag, one for Dr. Karstarson and also for your board secretary who takes care of you. And in your bag, you're going to find a few things. There's a calculator to help you balance the budget. Probably needs to have some more place value digits to accommodate all those many, many dollars that go back to the state and recapture. There's some black pens to help keep our school district in the black. But more importantly, there's a green highlighter, and that's to highlight and preserve those programs that help continue our students to grow and become the best students in the state. There's an emery board for those nights where it might be a real nail biter of a meeting. And then there's chocolate, well, of course, because chocolate always helps. My humor is lame. And the gifts are small, but know that our wishes are heartfelt and genuine, and we just thank you for all you do. Thanks for your service.
Thank you very much. Jessica Dulesky and Claire Reuter.
Board of Trustees and Dr. Kastarfin. Mic check. Mic check. This is a school board appreciation message. This is a school board appreciation message. From Occupy Austin. From Occupy Austin. We appreciate the board members. We appreciate the board members. Who listen to the voices of the community. Who listen to the voices of the community. And tried to keep our public schools. And tried to keep our public schools. From being privatized. From being privatized. We do not appreciate. We do not appreciate. The district leadership. The district leadership. That is more interested in pleasing Tom Torkelson. That is more interested in pleasing Tom Torkelson. Than serving your constituents. Than serving your constituents. We do not appreciate you telling us. You telling us. That this is about choice. That this is about choice. When you have not provided clear information. When you have not provided clear information. To the families who have been affected by your decisions. To the families who have been affected by your decisions. We do not appreciate. We do not appreciate. That you are giving pre-kindergartners to IDEA. That you are giving pre-kindergartners to IDEA. Without discussing this before the contract was signed. Without discussing this before the contract was signed. And with no clear alternative for those families. With no clear alternative for those families. We do not appreciate. We do not appreciate. How the hardworking teachers and staffers. How the hardworking teachers and staffers. Of Allen and Martin. Of Allen and Martin. Are being thrown under the bus. Are being thrown under the bus. Nor do we appreciate the campaign of intimidation against teachers who have spoken out. We are Occupy Austin. We stand for quality. Equal public education. We have not forgotten what you did in this room last month. And we will continue to stand against the attacks. On our schools, our teachers, and our communities.
Claire Reuter.
Good evening. I almost didn't get to speak. I had to sub this morning on the east side, and we can't sign up for public comment until after the time subs have to report to work. But I was able to sign up when I arrived here. Since October 30th, 2010, I've lived with the uncertainty of not knowing from day to day if I'm going to be subbing or where I'm going to be subbing. For more than a year, I have lived with the uncertainty of whether I will be able to make rent and put food on the table for the next go-around, never mind health insurance. Nevertheless, I have been privileged to sub for nearly 200 days at 20 different schools in your district. 70% of these days have been at Go Valley, which, if you are successful at ramming through your agenda, will be getting displaced 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders from nearby Allen because the new idea won't take them. They want to start with kindergarten through second grade or maybe pre-K. Even the kindergarten through second graders in the Allen neighborhood who qualify for IDEA may opt out and be assigned to Go Valley or Ortega if, and here's the catch, they understand your system well enough to do so. A relative works at an oil company. He has insurance and knows from day to day where he'll be working. He knows how much I need to make a livable wage. So he asked me if I was interested in working for IDEA, and I said no way. I could not work at a school that forces itself into our community where there is a consensus of opposition. 32 out of 32 people at last month's meeting spoke out against it to some extent or the other. Everybody I know who lives and or works in that community opposes it. I question the legality of having a charter school in a community where there is no agreement. I don't question the ethics of it because I know already that you are wrong to be bringing in this outside entity which you keep calling an in-district charter school. I could not work at a school where the CEO called my colleagues professional protesters. Why does he feel so threatened by teachers who exercise their right to free speech? AISD teachers near Allen are being told that they cannot express their professional opinions and discourage families from attending IDEA. What is it that you do not want to hear from us? I do not know how this difficult chapter in my life will end, but when it does, I can say that through it all, I lived in integrity. I earned my Master's of Education and my Texas certification and my highly qualified teacher status because I believe in serving the children and their community, not the AISD IDEA Board and their hidden agenda. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm going to just check one more time. Jonathan Cronin?
Yeah, he's not coming.
Okay. Thank you all for speaking tonight. Dr. Christopher, there were some issues raised that we'll probably follow up with you offline. At this point in time, we will now turn to the consent agenda, and we'll entertain motion or discussion.
I have a
Ms. Barksdale.
I'd like to pull item 14.7 for separate discussion.
Okay. Is there a second on that? Mr. Schneider, do you second this pulling 14.7?
I'll second pulling 14.7, but I would also like to pull 14.5 and 14.9 as well.
14.5 and 14.9 is okay.
Yes.
So let's do 14.7. We got a second on that. And is there others that want to pull 14.5 and 14.9? Anybody else wants to pull? Okay, second that. Okay, we'll pull those. So are there any other items people want to pull for discussion? Okay, I'll entertain a motion on the rest of the consent agenda other than 14.5, 7, and 9 to knock those out. And then agenda item 16 would be a separate vote entirely.
Right.
So.
Okay. Mr. President, I move approval of consent agenda items 11, 12, 13, 14.1, 14.2, 14.3, 14.4, 14.6, 14.8, 14.10, and item 15.
Very good. Is there a second on that motion? Second, Ms. Barksdale.
And I had a comment.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Let's
I'm maybe
open
out
up-
of order, but I had another comment on
this
that.
item?
Mhm.
You seconding it, or you just have a comment?
I'm second, and I have a comment.
Okay, so open up for comments or questions. Ms. Barksdale.
Okay, on this item, I wanted to just go on the record about item 11.2. I think the district deserves some credit. Item 11.2 is innovative course approvals. This is approving for the district to offer innovative courses. And just so the public knows, some of the courses being offered in AISD that are on this list are multivariable calculus. Yay for any kids who are taking that at the high school level. Linear algebra, discrete math, number theory. There are other classes on community service, biotechnology, modern physics. So just my hat tip to the academics department for offering these courses, teachers to teach them, and kids who are taking them.
Thank you, Ms. Barksdale. Any other comments on the motion as proposed? All in favor of that motion, please raise your right hand. Opposed? Abstain. Passed 8 with 1 abstention. Okay, now let us turn to, let's go in order, consent.
You want to do item 16?
Up 16, let's do 16, knock that out. Thank you, Ms. Lamoria.
Move approval of consent agenda item 16.
Thank you, Ms. Moya. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Second. Ms. Brister. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. Opposed? Abstention. Passed 7-2 with 2 abstentions. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Moyer, for reminding me of that one. Okay, now let's turn. We've got 3 items, 14.5, 7, and 9. I guess we can just take them one at a time in order. So either we'll entertain a motion or discussion or questions about 14.5. Mr. Schneider.
I just want a separate vote.
Any other questions or comments on 14.5? Okay, we'll entertain a motion on 14.5. Ms. Guzman moved approval. Is there a second? Second, Ms. Torres. All in favor of that motion, please raise your right hand. Opposed? Okay, passed 8 with 1 opposition. Do you want a separate vote on 14.9, Mr. Schneider?
No, I have some questions about 14.9 as well as a separate vote.
Okay, let's go to 14.7 then. So 14.7, discussion or questions or a motion? Ms. Barksdale.
I have a motion. It's not well formed yet, but just based on the item, based on the comment from Citizens Communication, and I think probably outreach we've received regarding some not clean lines around the bid for the properties for sale, I would move that we delay consideration for a vote on this until those items are settled in a satisfactory way for me and perhaps for folks involved in the bid.
Okay, so Dr. Starfin, do you want to address if this is maybe one of the items to address some of the questions that were raised this evening, specifically about the appropriate.
Did I move to delay? Maybe.
What was, okay, but make sure I wasn't, what was the question, motion?
It wasn't very well formed, I'm sorry. Motion was to delay a vote on item number 14.7 until we can satisfactorily clear up some of the items that were raised at Citizens Communication and communication that we've gotten online from folks involved around the bid.
So I guess we could, well, since it's a motion, we'll look for a second on that motion. But we could just, basically, if we don't vote on it, it automatically delays. But, you know, sometimes we don't do consent agendas, and by just the very nature of not acting, we've effectively delayed it. But since you made a motion, do you want that motion to stand, or you just want to discuss it and then decide if we want to act?
We can discuss.
Okay, let's discuss it and then decide if whether it's appropriate to delay or act on that motion. Okay, Dr. Christarfin, there were several questions raised, I think is what you're getting to this evening, about the appropriateness of the bid, particularly in light of some of the time issues and the correction about the bid item and the amount. So are you prepared to address those questions this evening?
Yeah, Mr. President, trustees of the board, I would appreciate it if our real estate attorney would, it's my understanding, is he here yet?
She's here.
I'm sorry, there she is.
Yeah.
And Lawrence Fryer. But I think these are questions that were, and I know you were on your way, so you may not have heard the whole discussion.
Yeah, I did not.
So, so there's some pretty specific questions which were raised, especially during our public comment, but the ones of concern, especially around some perceived irregularities, you know, whether or not, you know, people have followed each step of what was supposed to happen, and are we indeed doing this right? And there was a lot about no signed contract, how many days, the 120-day window, et cetera. So can you just recap for us how it's supposed to work? And you've reviewed the bid for us. Does it meet the sniff test or not?
The bid, once,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Joe
Callison,
real estate attorney, Rogers and Whitley.
Okay, and yeah, so I may say, maybe not when you say meet the sniff test, we're probably not at this point asking you for your qualitative opinion about whether it's a good or bad bid, but really just kind of from the legal standpoint, what have we complied with, or what issues that have been raised tonight, what's your position on those?
Okay, in terms of the irregularity of the bid, and I didn't hear all the citizen commentary because I was on my way, when the board acted in December, the contracts were prepared immediately thereafter. The contracts were prepared at the $980,000 bid, although the net amount, which is the purpose of this ratification tonight, although the net amount was stated in the agenda item in December, the recommendation did go on to say, accept the bid submitted by Independent Realty in accordance with the bid form. So there is other language that did speak to the intent, I think, to accept the bid as it was submitted. But when we realized that the stated dollar amount was the net amount instead of the bid amount, We prepared the contract with the bid amount, sent it to the buyer. He has signed those contracts. I consulted with Mel Waxler, and we agreed that the ratification would be put on the agenda. It couldn't happen until this regular board meeting, and so the contracts are being held for signature by Mr. Williams if the board approves that ratification. The contract provides that 2 business days after the contract is fully executed and sent to the title company, then the $25,000 earnest money deposit is required to be placed with the title company by the buyer. And as we know, that he's aware that he needs to do that and prepared to do that. But it wasn't appropriate yet because the district hasn't signed. So per the contract, that will happen.
Okay, let's open up for other questions. Mr. Guzman, and then we'll let, you may, if you're prepared to address some questions from the board on this item.
There was some, excuse me, there were some concerns or questions having to do with the timeline. I think 120 days was mentioned that there was beyond or.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear that, but it may be referring to in the bid package, we require that each bidder put up a bid guarantee, a bid bond. In this case, it was $3,000. And we have language that requires or provides that the board will act within a certain period of time, which it did by December. The real purpose of that is so that a potential bidder whose bid bond is up does not have to wait indefinitely to find out if his bid or the bid would be accepted. So although there is language that says that the district intends to act within 120 days, again, I didn't hear exactly what they said, but that would not be a basis for the district not being able to ratify this bid now.
From the standpoint of, not from the standpoint of the bid itself, not any judgment on that. Your legal opinion is that from the standpoint of all the legalities with regard to the bidding out of that contract and the acceptance of that bid, we're all in order?
Assuming the ratification of the bid tonight, what's on the agenda.
Okay. Other questions about this particular item? Ms. Moya.
Thank you for being here and to take some of these questions. One of the other questions I heard tonight and have heard from through email and such is the belief that we could actually take action tonight on accepting one of the other bids. And my understanding of how this works is that that is not possible. Is that correct, or could you help clear that up?
I agree that that would not be possible.
Yeah, just confirm we're not posted for that particular action item tonight. Mr. Schneider.
Mr. Fryer, I wanted to just make sure that I understood something that I believe is, you've brought to the board before. The issue of doing an impervious cover swap with this piece of land and other possible pieces of property that AISD either owns or may own in the future in the Barton Springs Recharge Zone has been discussed with the city. Is that correct? Joe, I know you were part of those discussions.
I was. I have spoken with Deborah Thomas, who's the assistant city attorney over the real estate division. In the category of kind of procedurally, if the contract, we have a land development standards agreement, it is a contract. It has been amended before, and so amendments can be agreed to by the city and the district, but the response that I got from Deborah Thomas was very negative, skeptical in terms of the city being interested in approving some sort of ability to assign impervious cover elsewhere, in particular within the Barton Springs zone, that would be the least desirable possibility.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Barstow.
Right. I don't want to belabor the bid process stuff, but I do have a few more questions because it seems like there are just some exceptions that happened, like the bid package was out and the process was clear, but questions are being raised about meeting certain deadlines. And it sounds like you're saying there, for folks who are, pointing at particular things the district did or didn't do correctly. There's just a misunderstanding of the process or the deadlines that were put out there?
Again, I didn't hear exactly what it was that that was being
Oh, I'll ask this then. I'll ask
questioned.
this then. What are, like, if there's a 5 or 6 step process in the bid package or in the bid process, what are those, and were there any exceptions, material or not, to the way we proceeded with this bid?
There is state law that requires that that we advertise.
Right.
We did advertise. There's a requirement that it be done twice, and you can't sell within 14 days of the bid. That's never an issue for us because we have a longer process. We put a deadline for acceptance of bids. We open the bids, receive bids, and open the bids received by that deadline. And then we evaluated the bids. We do have the provision that says that the district intends to act within 120 days, which it did with its December action. Again, I think that the agenda item in December certainly made it clear that the intent, and I didn't bring it, I meant to, but didn't bring it, that it makes it clear the intent was to accept the bid that was submitted by Independent Realty. There were no conditions to that bid. And the board agenda item did recommend acceptance of that. There was one, the one line in there that said, accept the bid submitted in the amount of, and then that dollar amount was the net amount. So in order to have on the record the ratification to clarify, yes, the intent was the $980,000, it's been brought back to the board. But there were no exceptions to the process. It's our normal process that we've used for surplus property.
Okay, so the idea, if I may follow up, the idea that there should have been some earnest money put up but within a certain amount of time of that vote last month really doesn't stand in your opinion because the true bid wasn't ratified according to that little, the exception that was the bid amount was wrong in what we voted on.
Right, and for that reason, the contracts have not been submitted to Mr. Williams for signature, and until they're deposited in the title company, there's not a requirement. That, I mean, the contract dictates when the earnest money gets deposited. We're still holding the bid guarantee, and then we'll proceed with the contract requirements once we have the contract in the title company, which triggers an effective date under the contract, and everything else rolls from there.
Okay. I have a separate question. Okay. Just for the record, this may be more for Mr. Fryer. The communities involved have raised some issues about the vetting of the buyer, and I'd like to just go on the record with the district's position on vetting the buyer, is the buyer's ability to proceed with the sale and, I guess, assume development, and just their background, their experience. Or whoever that's appropriate for us. I don't know if it's Mr. Fryer.
President Williams, Dr. Starpin, Board of Trustees. We have been working with our real estate consultant, and so there is some information which we provided through an update earlier today, and that's pretty much the extent of it right now as far as background information.
Right. Then thank you for providing that to us. I wanted to give you an opportunity to just kind of go on the record. Those questions are lingering. I don't know if the public they've asked me, so I assume they may have asked other board members, but just to go on the record with the clarification of the vetting of the buyer and the district's level of comfort with that vetting.
Yeah, based on the feedback that we've gotten from our consultant and the vetting that has taken place, we are comfortable at this point.
So just follow up. So you think there's been sufficient due diligence and that you're comfortable with the capacity, capability, and the credibility of the buyer?
Based on what the information we received so far, yes. Based on what we have now.
Is there reason to believe there's other information that you don't have that you need to have to make that determination?
I'll turn to my consultant, Danny. This is Danny Roth, who's the real estate consultant.
Evening. We did a series of things to look into his background. We did something called a LexisNexis search. We interviewed him. We got there was a letter in the package from a bank expressing their interest in financing. He met with and reported back to me meetings with his engineers, his planning consultants, his attorneys, and so forth. And now, the purpose of a contract is you go into contract, there's still a feasibility period, and there's nothing to say that things won't happen during that feasibility that would cause him to fall off. He can, escape from the contract during the feasibility period, and the feasibility period is 90 days. So nothing is certain in real estate until you have your closing. And but we feel like he's qualified. He does have a 4 or 5 year history of building some homes with the partner who he's partnering this with. So, as best as we know, he looks to be legit.
So it's not that 90 days be from the point in time at which we
execute the contract and deliver to the title company, so that the day it's delivered to the title company is the official start of the 90 days, or the day after is day 1.
Sorry, Ms. Barksdale, I jumped in on your question. Go ahead.
No, thank you. That was good clarification.
Is that to cover what you're looking for?
That's what I was looking for.
Mr. Guzman.
Just wanted to know whether there's any potential recourse from the person that's being recommended for the contract up to now, due to any representation or any part of the process that we've gone to so far, whether there's any recourse to the district based on that.
Well, what I can tell you is that the contract provides that if the district signs the contract and then fails to perform, the right of the buyer in this case is to terminate the contract and receive back the earnest money that he's put up. And that would be the sole recourse under the contract.
But that's after the contract's not
It
at this
is.
time. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay, let me address a couple quick things with you, which is, one was there were some observations made about the bid is incomplete and irregular. And I think what I heard you say is that the bid was actually not. I mean, the process was. What might have been a little bit unusual is the approval that the board took in December was, as it turned out, did not reflect the right amount. And that's what you're looking for, clarification or correction, I guess, this evening. But the question that came up was the 120 days. And does that, whatever the cause is, does that cause a trigger in the 120 days that causes a problem for the district? Or do you believe that the action we're taking and what we're doing this evening still allows us to make sure that the entire process is in compliance and appropriate?
Right. I believe this ratification tonight would keep it in compliance with the bid.
Okay, and the second thing is really, I think, Mr. Fryer question, or maybe it's Dr. Christopherson, but one of the questions that's always come up about is the value of this bid versus other bids. And I think the question about the impervious cover and really what's the value of the impervious cover component, which I think what you're describing, Ms. Callison, is that the challenge is, one, whether the city would actually give us the value, what the acreage, the land value, and whether we'd have to have a specific project for which we don't have now.
Right.
And then how much impervious cover would they allot to that, and the land development agreement would have to get modified. But then the second question is even if they presume they'd give it all to us and we can go through all the hoops, at what value would that impervious cover be worth? And Mr. Fryer, I'm looking to you, as I think staff's position was that value would not be worth the delta between the prices of the offers we have between this one and then other offers. The amount offered is much greater than the value of that impervious cover would be to the district. And in a time of challenging financial needs, the administration position is this bid actually offers a higher value overall, considering all elements, to the district.
Yes,
is that a fair representation of what you've
that
conveyed to us?
That is fair representation based upon the prices of the per acreage in the areas that we've been looking at. Also, as you said, as far as the value, will we be able to use that in another recharge zone? And so there's some other specificity that is unknown at this time. That would determine whether or not we'd be able to use that acreage in the future.
So Dr. Starfin and Mr. Fryer, given what Ms. Callison said and the questions that are raised this evening, would it still be y'all's position that you would like the board to move forward on the recommendation as currently reflected in our agenda item?
Yes, that's the recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from the board at this time? Okay, we'll entertain a motion on 14.7. Do you have a question? She ended up not getting a second, I think, and so the motion didn't have, the idea to delay it didn't actually end up turn into a motion. So we'll entertain a motion on the approval of 14.7. If that, Mr. Torres, so move. Is there a second on that motion? Second, Ms. Brister. Any other discussion? All in favor of that motion, please raise your right hand. Opposed? Passed 7-2. Thank you, board members. Okay, let's now move to 14.9. This was an additional item for discussion. Ms. Schneider.
Yeah, I have some questions regarding 14.9. This is the Performing Arts Center recommendation, and there was some information that was provided from the discussion that we had a week or so ago, listing the number of events that would be at this facility and the size of those events. And my reading of those numbers was that there were only a couple that were, I think 3 that were more than 1,000 participants, a few in the 800 to 900 range, and everything else was in the 600 or less range. Is that correct? And I don't know, Dr. Karstoffen, whether you want to address this or whether you want some of your facilities folks, or what's your preference?
Please, Dr. Starfin.
Mr. President, trustees of the board, Trustee Schneider, I would, I'm assuming, I'm sorry, my eyes are so bad. Is that Paul Turner back there? Yes, it is. Would y'all like to come and answer some of the specific questions about the amounts?
And just so the public might be wondering what we're looking, we're actually being asked to approve a schematic design for the Performing Arts Center this evening.
Thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. Snyder, you were referring to this document?
Yes, it's the document that was provided in our board weekly update last
Yes, sir.
Thursday.
Uh-huh. And sorry, let me get organized here. The number of participants, and I'm going to have to do a quick little frequency distribution. You were wanting to know how many.
Mr. Turner, just as
I'm sorry.
The statement is based fundamentally. I don't necessarily want accuracy, but if the statement is fundamentally correct, that there are 3, maybe 4 events that you're anticipating more than 1,000 people. Another small handful of events, the way my recollection was, something in the range of 5, maybe even up to 10, that had somewhere between 600 and 1,000 people that were going to attend. Most of the ones I remember are the 800 to 900 range.
Yes, sir.
Everything below that was 600 or less, and I remember some being like 20 as an
Yes, sir.
example. Right. Is that essentially correct?
It is.
Okay. So is it not correct that most of our high school performing arts centers that or theaters, or however we're labeling these days, have a capacity of around 600 people for
500 on the high school campuses, Mr. Schneider. That's what we've been working toward.
Okay. My recollection from Los LBJ and Bowie is a little bit higher, but I mean, you guys know the numbers better than I do. So the thing that I was struck by was that we have a fair amount of capacity at our existing high schools, and to have such a small number of events that's going to require a larger number of participants is, you know, I'm questioning why we're doing this. I mean, with the questions that were raised last week about the true functionality of this facility, whether it's orchestra, whether it's choir, whether it's some of the other things that were mainly raised by Mr. Torres, and you know, the numbers that we're seeing here, you know, spending $40 million on a facility like this is something that raises questions for me. So I noticed that you had in the document updated signatures from 2 of the co-chairs that had not signed the original letters. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
correct?
That's true.
They had no reservations about going forward with this. Is that right?
They did not.
Okay. And I also wanted to ask you about transportation facilities as well in this. We're going to continue to be busing kids in to the facility, and then off-site parking for the buses at either
Yes,
Reagan, Nelson Field. Is that right?
That's correct. One of the big bits of feedback that we got from the community was to help avoid sending buses through the neighborhood. So we've mapped out a route where we would go down the I-35 access road and go over to Nelson Field where we could park the buses until it was time to come back to pick the children up.
Okay. When you have time and, transportation time and cost figures for doing that on an annual basis for the events that you've listed, can you please provide that information to the board?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And finally, I want to talk to you about the liner. I noticed that it has essentially mysteriously disappeared from the discussions that we had last week and is not part of this discussion at this point. Can you tell me how that's being resolved?
Yes, sir. We have continued to have conversations with Catellus. Part of what we've been working toward is to come to an agreement. We've had our bond counsel involved in each of those discussions, as well as Ms. Callison as our real estate attorney, Mr. Shaw and myself. And what we've been working to do is to try to work toward Catellus continuing to keep responsibility for that. We believe during this last week we made a lot of headway in working through some of the issues. Some of the issues that have been involved, the bond counsel, the opportunities that we have for investing in the Performing Arts Center have to be activities like the internal drive or the extension of utilities or something like that that we would have to do regardless of whether the liner was involved in it. So, what we've been trying to work through is to get a situation where there is an understanding about exactly what we can do, what the value that Catellus would get from this, and to try to make sure that we're staying in alignment with all the requirements that we need to meet in order to invest bond money where we can and make sure we don't invest it where we can't. So we are making progress in that direction, and that's where we're continuing to work. We have another conference call set up for Thursday of this week. We're hopeful we're going to get closer to nailing that down.
But aren't we just creating a smaller piece of property that's going to have the same limitations that the bigger piece of property had? I mean, we're taking 4.5 acres and essentially cleaving off half an acre or so for the liner, but that half acre or so is still going to be subject to the same restrictions, limitations in terms of walkability and those other issues that were raised that the entire site had before. Is that not right?
I think the reality is, Mr. Snyder, the amount of property that's involved in it would have been the same regardless of whether we were developing it or Catellus was, because it's a requirement of the design standards there at Miller. And so for all intents and purposes, the effective available space is going to be the same. The whole design that we've developed in that has assumed all along that liner property would not be available for use. And so the design takes that into account regardless of whether we develop it or Catellus develops.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate the work that you folks have tried to do with this and trying to meet the demands of both what the board has been asking you to do and what the agreement with the city and Mueller and the Catellus folks are. But to me, this is just still a fundamentally bad idea. I mean, it's in the wrong location. It's really not doing what we had expected it to do. And, spending that amount of money at this point in time is not the right way to do things. So that's why I'm not going to be supporting this.
Okay, other questions or comments regarding this item? Ms. Moya, do you have something? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to say I think this is a beautiful design facility, and I think there's a lot of effort put in, and obviously our community voted on this twice in the 2004 and the 2008 bond program to support a performing arts center. So I think the demand is there, and I think we've gotten sign-off from the task force. I know it's not always unanimous like most items in this, but I do think we've put together a very good program and facilities here that will be a serve benefit for our children for many, many years. Ms. Bradley.
Mr. Turner and Mr. Fryer, I remember there being several emails floating across about the dance facility. Can you speak to us about what was the, what happened with that? What was the last decision, or was it?
Ms. Bradley, the dance facility is being bid, and you've seen this in some of our earlier projects in the past. What we do, particularly when we have a particularly favorable bidding climate, we sometimes do what we call add alternate bids. And so what we've done, we've designed the dance rehearsal space, and it is being put out to bid as an add alternate bid in the hopes that we will get really good bids, as we have been here in this last stage of the bond, and that will come in at a point where we'll be able to include the dance rehearsal space from the beginning. But regardless of what bid we get, certainly we'll do everything we can to see if that can be included from the start there.
But the board's given an indication that we'd like to see that from the start. So you're going to come back to us before you make any decisions are made, because certainly that's been the intent all along, is to include it. So if that changes, please let us know.
We promise.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and actually entertain a motion on this one. I don't have one yet at this point on 14.9.
Move approval of item 14.9.
Is there a second? Second, Mr. Torres. Discussion, further discussion. All in favor of that motion, please raise your right hand. Opposed? Passed 8-1. Thank you, board. Okay. We appreciate everyone's time. Staff, thank you very much. I don't know if Ms. Callison's still here. Yes, thank you for being here. Mr. Roth, thank you as well. Let us now turn to the superintendent's report. We've got one item, and it is probably something we've been anxiously awaiting for quite a while. Dr. Karstafen.
It is indeed, Mr. President, trustees. Last year, on February 28th, 2011, the Board of Trustees adopted, at the recommendation of the administration, a declaration of financial exigency, which district policy requires in order to conduct a reduction in force. As you know, the district subsequently eliminated positions related to the reduction in force, and we anticipated, and because we anticipated, and it actually came true, that there was a significant reduction in state aid in the end of millions of dollars of federal stimulus funding. Last year, staff reductions and other expenditure controls were part of a long-range budget planning effort. So over the last 2 years, our strategy has been to reduce the budget, stabilize our resources, and create a structure that allows us to do a better job of controlling our finances regardless of what the legislative session may dish out. And following this strategy over the last 2 years, we've been able to increase the district's reserve levels so that our fund balance is sufficient to cover an anticipated deficit next year. So, as I discussed before and opened the school year with, there will not need to be another reduction in force this school year in order to manage our budget. We committed earlier in the school year to not have another reduction in force, and we also committed to making a recommendation to withdraw the declaration of financial exigency, of which I am still pleased to report we are on track to do both, or to not do both. Tonight, with the board's approval of the proposed resolution, you will be officially notifying the public, especially our staff, that AISD is no longer under a state of financial exigency and that we do not plan to undergo a reduction in force for the upcoming school year as part of our budgeting process. So we are really pleased to be here, and we hope that this kind of planning for multiple years at a time will be able to keep the district in a strong position like this for years to come. So we know for next school year it won't be needed, and we're asking your support in supporting this resolution.
Thank you, Dr. Karstafen. So, board, I will entertain a motion to withdraw and declare the end of financial exigency and reduction in force. Ms. Moya.
Do we need to read the resolution as well? as part of the motion?
I think, maybe not, but I think it probably wouldn't hurt just to do it. I'm sorry to have you do that, but just to make sure that we do this appropriately.
Okay.
Sorry, you got stuck there.
Okay. I move that the board adopt the attached resolution, soon to be spoken by me, declaring the end of financial exigency and successful implementation of the reduction in force, including program change and reorganization. Resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Austin Independent School District, resolution declaring end of financial exigency and successful implementation of program changes, reduction in force. Whereas circumstances existed as described in the resolution adopted by the Board of Trustees of the Austin Independent School District on February 28, 2011, to declare a financial exigency and need for program change and reorganization to reduce financial expenditures for personnel for the district's 2011-2012 fiscal year. And whereas such circumstances included projected declines in the district's financial resources and tax revenues, and whereas the Board Policy Manual, DFF Local, Termination of Employment, Reduction in Force, the Reduction in Force policy sets forth certain measures and procedures to be followed upon the occurrence of the circumstances described in the resolution of February 28, 2011, and whereas in the resolution of February 28, 2011, the board declared 1, a financial exigency, which is defined in the reduction in workforce policy to include a decline in the district's financial resources, students, or tax revenues. 2, the need for certain program changes defined in the reduction in workforce policy to include the modification or reorganization of staffing patterns or redirection of financial resources to meet the educational needs of the students. 3, that the financial exigency, program changes, and the reorganization could result in the discharge or non-renewal of one or more employees in the district's central administration and at the campus level. And 4, that as a component of the budgetary emergency, the employment areas identified in the resolution of February 28, 2011 should be reviewed by the superintendent in accordance with the reduction in workforce policy, and any contract recommendations resulting from such review should be returned to the board for consideration. And whereas the superintendent prepared financial analysis and recommendations to determine the conditions for the resolution of February 28, 2011 at meetings held on September 13, 2010, November 18, 2010, December 6, 2010, January 10, 2011, and January 18, 2011, January 24, 2011, and February 28, 2011. And the board considered the superintendent's recommendations as part of its consideration of the district's proposed 2011-12 budget. And whereas at its regular meeting on August 22, 2011, the board approved the district's 2011-12 budget, which was prepared according to generally accepted accounting principles and rules adopted by the State Board of Education and covers all estimated revenues and proposed expenditures of the district for the 2011-12 fiscal year, including a revenue budget of $972,437,585, an expenditure budget of $974,270,872, an appropriation of $627,974 from the general fund balance, $645,872 from the food services fund balance, and $559,441 from the debt service fund balance. And whereas the district's projected unobligated unassigned general fund balance is approximately $179.6 million for the fiscal year ending August 31, 2011, representing an increase of more than $31.5 million over the district's fund balance on August 31, 2010. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board hereby finds and determines that the recitals of this resolution are true and correct, and be it further resolved that the district's 2011-12 budget established a balanced economic framework and restores a sound financial condition to the district through the implementation of numerous cost-saving measures, including the implementation of a district reorganization plan and the elimination of 1,153 positions, and a 21% increase in the district's fund balance for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2011, And be it finally resolved that the board hereby finds that as a result of measures described in this resolution and the adoption of the district's 2011-12 budget, the financial exigency and the need for program changes and reorganization declared in the resolution of February 28, 2011, no longer exist, and that the district's financial condition is sound. Period.
So moved. She moved. Thank you, Ms. Moya. You are a trooper. Second, Mr. Torres. Any discussion? Mr. Snyder.
I just have a question. Dr. Sharfin, for the budget for the coming year, how much are you anticipating taking out of fund balance to balance everything out?
Nicole, do you have an exact number on that? Mr. President, trustees of the board, I'm going to ask our Chief Financial Officer, Nicole Conley-Abram, to map out some of the details of the plan. And they are still, just before you draft, we have a preliminary budget we're working on, so the numbers that are shared here may not be exact by the time we get to the preliminary budget in February. So, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President, trustee members, members of the public. I'm Nicole Conley-Abrams, CFO for the district. We're actually in the process of preparing the preliminary budget, as Dr. Karstafen stated. If you recall from the December financial forecast, we're looking at a basic operating or baseline shortfall of about $12.6 million at this point in time. We've actually going through the process of reevaluating the cost components of the annual AAFRs, and we're also looking at options to consider what we spoke about at the December meeting regarding a possible one-time payment for employees to address or make some progress on sort of a compensation at this point in time. So we're looking at all the, quantifying all those basic sort of options, and we're looking at anywhere of a potential draw of anywhere from between 25 to 30 million at this point in time when you take into account all those various cost components.
Ms. Conley-Abrams, does that include being forced to go out for a TRE or not? I mean, is that an option, or is it something that we're going to have to consider, or where do we stand with that?
Well, as we discussed at the last discussion when we talked about possible options regarding the TRE, I believe we have sufficient reserves to cover a one-time payment at this point in time. But unfortunately, you cannot increase salaries utilizing a fund balance appropriation of that amount. So if you want to sort of make the potential one-time payment permanent for all employees, we would need a recurring revenue stream. And the only way to do that is to sort of increase the tax rate and go out for a tax ratification election. But at this point in time, we could utilize some of our reserves to make that one-time payment. We're actually looking at options this year so that we can, again, increase our reserve levels in anticipation of what could happen in the next legislative session. What we like to do is sort of stay within the target when we attained the AAA rating, which we were about 148 million in unreserved fund balance. So we're trying to create capacity to support a one-time payment if the board decides that it wants to move forward in that with that action without sort of considering a TRE. Certainly, we're hopeful that we can sustain this revenue over time so we can put it in place permanently for all salaries and not necessarily treat it as a payment. But we do have sufficient reserve levels to cover that if the board looks for an option that pushes out a TRE for a later date. And we also, again, are looking to build reserves and continue with our cost controls and sort of shutting down the system so that we can build capacity to sustain any possible additional actions from the next legislative session.
Okay. But can I make one more? But just to be at least clear to me, would it be fair to say that we are able to meet the recent legal definitions of being able to remove ourselves from the financial exigency, but we still have a significant monetary problem that we're going to have to address in the coming years to be able to continue to run the district and adequately provide for both our programs and our employees?
Yes, I do believe it's, we can delay maybe a year, maybe two, but certainly we would need recurring revenue to meet obligations if we want to address compensation and other growing expenditures. So this buys us some time, essentially.
Thank you.
Mrs. Voy.
I was wondering, of the 1,100 positions that were released under exigency, how many of those positions have been rehired by the district?
I'm gonna defer to my colleague. I think. Sorry.
I'm sorry. 650, is that what you said?
Okay. Mr. Hauser was indicating about
So-
650 of those 1,100 have been rehired.
Right, about half, I believe, and that's through the expansion of some additional grant monies that we've received, that we were able to sort of bring back and build capacity for half of the employees. Some of which we also made some adjustments on the 22-to-1, and we had enrollment growth that we anticipated.
So just to make sure I understand, roughly half of the positions released under exigency were rehired?
Yes.
Thank you.
People, not necessarily
Positions.
People.
Yeah, but people, yes.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. Let me ask Nicole, you're here, and this would actually, from your perspective, also be healthy from a bond rating implications, the public perception. I know there was always a confusion, we thought about it before, that it does create sort of a perspective about a district when you have financial exigency, when you're trying to go out to the capital markets. Even though I think we have a very strong district record and a financial performance, it still is something that's just it's a tag that you necessarily, if you could avoid having it, it'd be better to not to have it.
Absolutely, and we will have to agree upon what the financial plan is to maintain our reserve levels at a level that the rating agencies felt was sufficient, meaning if we don't sort of dip below that 150 level, I believe that they would consider us solid, and as long as we don't utilize the monies for recurring expenditures. And then they would want us to have a plan in place, like we were going to pursue a TRE as of whatever date to sort of meet the needs to match those recurring expenditures. So as long as we have a plan, I believe that we can satiate the needs for the rating agencies to show that we're financially solid.
So I guess, Dr. Trump, this is not necessarily a forever, that we will never have to go into financial exigency again, but that at this point, we've reached a position where we can come out of it. We're not going to have a reduction in force this upcoming year, which is actually very good news, that we've prepared for a 2-year, but we don't know what the next legislature is going to do to us, and we may have to be prepared to deal with this at some point again. But I think it's in a healthy position for us to be in, certainly for the next upcoming school year. Ms. Barksdale?
Right, to the point I think that you just made, there are implications to using exigency as a tool, aren't there, like in a repeated fashion? So maybe you could just speak to that, and if there are any guidelines on that with regard to frequency of use or, level of I'll just leave it at that. There are implications for repeated use of exigency for financial management, aren't there?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there are new requirements that the state has just authorized as part of this last legislative session, that rulemaking has just went into effect, and I think we're just sort of closing out the comment period, and the TA is sort of stipulating and sort of outlining the conditions for how districts, they're tightening the conditions for how districts declare financial exigency. Also, once you declare it, it automatically expires after 1 year, so you won't have to declare out of it. It only lasts for 1 year. And so there'll be more stringent conditions around that regarding declaring it in the future. The frequency doesn't really necessarily matter so much to rating agencies. They see it as a stabilization tool. It's what you have to do to implement a RIF. If they were, looking at private companies, whatever you have to do to sort of cut your expenditures, you elicit, you trigger those events. So they see it as a tool. But certainly there are stricter and more stringent standards around it. TEA is putting provisions in place to make sure that they monitor and sign off on, the commissioner himself signing off on financial exigency going forward. But I do believe something like a statewide budgetary cut, which would have impacts across all school districts, is something that, I'm pretty sure that they will be amenable to if we had to sort of access the need for financial exigency as a result of legislative actions.
Okay, thanks. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, please raise your right hand. Thank you. We pass unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Conley-Abram, Dr. Starfin. We are out of financial exigency. We will sign the resolution accordingly. I believe that concludes our meeting. So we are, what time we got? 9:21. We are adjourned. Thank you, board members.